name is Dror Vanunu. Dror. Dror meaning, by the way, in Hebrew, freedom. That's a biblical name for freedom. I'm originally, I had the privilege to live in Gush Katif for 11 years. And I was studying for PhD in Middle East Studies in the Bar-Ilan University. And during the struggle to save Gush Katif around 2005, so I joined the campaign and I was part of the leadership that was struggling against the disengagement plan. So I did different roles in the municipality and developing department of Gush Katif. So since 2005, we were evacuated. Me, my family. I had three kids at that time. Today we have, thanks God, 4 kids. And we used to live in Neve Dekalim. Neve Dekalim used to be the largest community in Gush Katif. Community with 500 families, a beautiful, beautiful, thriving place. And we were expelled from our homes in Gush Katif. We were sent to Jerusalem for several months. And after 6 months, we moved here to the temporary site. I call it a modern refugee camp here in Nitzan. We're right now about 600 families living here in this place. In the last years, me and my friends are part of the Gush Katif committee. We're a group of people who are working day and night to help the people from Gush Katif. What happened is that basically Israel evacuated 10,000 people, but there was no real solution for the families. And as a matter of fact, as a result of that, right now, still 5 years later, the majority of the families, something around more than 85% of the families are still living in temporary sites around the country. Again, 5 years later. And there are a lot of problems that we are now trying to work and trying to work on them. So, first of all, you're now, as I said, in Nitzan. Nitzan is a modern, I call it a modern refugee camp because people were forced, expelled from their homes, evacuated from their homes, and put here in Nitzan, its temporary site. All the nice roof homes that you see are between 60 to 90 square meters. They are plaster walls, which means that they are very temporary and very small. The majority of the families here have large families. The average family here has 5 to 6 kids. So to squeeze a family which had 200, 250 square meters in a tiny house, that's not something that people are really enjoying. In addition, the current condition here in this place are not allowing to have a real community life. For a long time we didn't have any school or kindergartens or any facilities for the kids. So that's in general, to give you a background about this place. Half of the families are from the Neve Dekalim and the rest are from the farming communities of Gush Katif. Okay, so that's a little bit to give you a background. During the evacuation, I'm not exaggerating, we had thousands of journalists from the top networks, top TV station around the world, to tiny Micronesia small newspapers or local newspapers that came to cover different aspects of the evacuation. So basically, Israel in 1970, when we went back to Gush Katif in 1970, the Jews of Gush Katif went back. During all the history, Jews used to live in Gush Katif. We're going to see in a few minutes one of the movies about it. But right after the 1967 war, so Israel went back to the biblical lands in Judea, in Samaria, in the Golan Heights, in Jerusalem, as well as the Gaza Strip. So 3 years afterwards, we re-established the communities there, and communities which were abandoned for several years started to be thriving again. By the way, it's very important to mention that from the days of the patriarchs, until 1929, there was always Jewish existence in the Gaza Strip. Always Jewish communities were there. In 1929, as part of the riots, have you heard about the riots of 1929? Because of the so-called occupation of 1967, so in 1929, the thousands of Arabs started to murder and attack the Jewish communities in Hebron, killing 70 people there, murdering them in a very terrible cruelty. They killed their people from the Jewish communities where used to be the doctors and the nurses there. They murdered them in a very cruel way. The same thing in Jerusalem, in Tzfat, and in Gaza. The Jewish community there was evacuated in advance before the Arabs here were able to attack. Yes?
I'm just curious, historically, because I understand, of course, it makes a lot of sense for there to be a Jewish community, a very old yeshuv, in Tzfat, Hebron, Yerushalayim. They're like, very important religious sites for the Jewish people. I'm just curious why was also Gaza one of those places?
Well, Gaza, because Gaza was one of them. It's part of Eretz Israel. Very, very simple. Gaza, Tel Aviv has nothing to do. Tel Aviv is something new. Tel Aviv has nothing to. But for Jews, for decades, the Jewish community of Gaza was one of the main centers of the Judaism. Many of, I'm not sure that you are aware of them, but many of the rabbis, the chief rabbis of Gaza, are well known historically by, being one of the top leaders in different periods. That was always part of it. By the way, the largest mosaic in a synagogue that was ever found in Israel was in a synagogue in Gaza. That's a fact. Jews, we came back in 1970, started to establishing different communities for almost 35 years, and in 2005, August 2005, the Jewish existence there was evacuated during the disengagement plan. So that's a little bit background.